Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today to Transform Your Impact, where we interview thought leaders, creatives, visionaries, entrepreneurs on the steps and the secret sauce that they've used to get to their success, and how you can utilize these tools and information to transform your own world and your own impact. So today I'm so excited. We're interviewing Lisa Kohn. She's a wonderful woman. She lives in the Philadelphia area, and she is an author to the moon and back, as well as a leadership consultant and coach for the past 2 decades. So a lot of wisdom, and really excited to have her on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome. Awesome. Beautiful. So let's just dive right in. What is tell us about the amazing things that you're up to.
So as you mentioned, I have my memoir just come out, and it was published in last September. So just over 4 months, which has been a long time coming and an amazing story and a extremely wild experience. And then, so that's truly amazing. And then to couple that with my work as a leadership consultant and executive coach, as they kind of go hand in hand and together, it's been another like wide opening of who I am and how I work with clients and what the value I can offer to clients. So it's been, I can go into any more detail of anything you want, but it's been a truly mind-blowing, eye-opening, hard, wonderful, exciting, painful, evolving experience.
So. I love it. So one of the things that really drew me to what you're up to is that you've got this leadership and coaching thing, as well as the creative side that you're working on, and you're a speaker as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you just tell us about how, like, maybe the two have informed or influenced each other?
Yeah. So if I stop and think about it, they began somewhat in the same time. So I've had my business for more than 2 decades. I grew up in entertainment advertising, and I was there. I somehow got convinced them to send me for an executive MBA at Columbia. And when I was there, I discovered the disciplines in which I now play around people and leadership and truly being our best. And we call it thoughtful leadership, being present, intentional, and authentic, truly leading from your best. So I discovered these disciplines and hung out a shingle in 95, and brought all myself to the work I'm doing and truly helping clients, again, show up their best, lead their best, learn skills, deal with what's inside them. And at the same time, my memoir is about, I had one of those unique childhoods. I like to say that the childhood is extremely unique. The only person I know with something similar is my older brother, but the themes are universal. But so I can go into more details, but everything I learned to survive and thrive from my childhood and heal from my childhood influences the way I teach leadership and where I come from, right? And really going deep to go forward with people. And so they're truly melding and supporting each other. It's like I go to clients, I'm like, okay, now I don't have to explain to you how I have these tools. Let's just talk about how the tools help you. So it's a wild experience. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. So would you say that leadership tools are a big part of what's gotten you to where you are in your career?
I would say that that the leadership tools I use are all about self-awareness. So it's emotional intelligence, right? Self-awareness, self-regulation and control. So who am I? What am I bringing? What's working? What's not? What am I feeling? How am I handling it? And then how do I manage it effectively? And then awareness of other people and how we interact and engage, and why you drive me crazy and why I drive you crazy, and how to manage that social construct that gets in the way or that helps us move forward. So I wouldn't say it's leadership skills that help me. I would say that I come to leadership from a truly first know thyself, first heal thyself, first have more, assume other people come with good intention, be willing to hear their story because it's different than yours. Be able to be aware of the biases in your head, all those. So it's more about self-development that influences all the leadership skills. I mean, we teach delegation and we teach feedback and we teach best practices on all those things, but it's really first comes from how can I show up as my best, and how can I allow you to show up as your best, so that we can actually get together and come to something positive and shared meaning. So again, I
Awesome.
wouldn't say that I healed from leadership skills. I would say my leadership skills are truly based on all of the tools I learned to, care for myself, and love for others. The technical word love, right? That I do use in the corporate world. So yes.
I think it's great. I think it's great. And so you're bringing, with your consulting work, you're bringing leadership and like emotional intelligence and self-awareness into businesses one-on-one with clients, or?
Yeah. So we work with Fortune 50, Fortune 10 companies. We work with small not-for-profits. We work with Arranged. We do one-on-one executive coaching with senior leaders or any leaders, truly helping them figure out how they're getting in their own way, what their dark side is, and how do you embrace that dark side, be aware of that dark side, manage through that dark side, and again, show up as best you can. We work with leadership teams when they're not getting along, or they have to think and they need someone to facilitate a conversation so they can have those really tough conversations about the business or about the team and how they're working together. And then we do full-blown training, if you will, around any sorts of leadership or management, and interpersonal skills. So truly, how can I as an individual learn? How can we as a team or a group learn? And how can we as an organization build a culture where everyone can learn?
Win-win.
Win, win, win. Yeah, that's what I love it. I get to do it, right? And so I'm very lucky. I love what I do. I'm very lucky. Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, will you tell us about your memoir? Because this is like excited. This is like in the last year or so, right?
Yeah. So it's been worked on for, again, almost as long as the practice has, my consulting practice. But so the way I describe my childhood is the best seats I ever had at Madison Square Garden were at my mother's wedding. And if anyone is old enough, they do know that is a reference to the mass weddings. I grew up in the Unification Church. Reverend Sung Mamoon, I was best friends with his kids. So that I grew up in a cult.
Wow.
That's my mom. And on the other side, the best, cocaine I ever had was from my father's friend, the judge. So I had a religious fanatical cult on one side and sex, drugs, and squalor in New York City's East Village in the 70s on the other side. So there were these two, crazy, conflicting, contrasting, neither one of them particularly stable or supportive environments that carved my brain in such interesting ways. And so the memoir deals my whole childhood until it traces how I got out of the church, how I got out of the Unification Church, and what that did to me, and then how the guilt and shame one feels when one leaves an extremist situation, especially if one has grown up in it. We're called second generations if you were born and or raised in an extreme situation. So all of that then fueled a lot of self-damaging actions, and hence the cocaine and the anorexia and the bad relationships, and then a glimpse of how I began to heal, some of the tools that began to help me heal. And then it kind of ends with kind of going full circle. Number of years ago, before I finally finished the memoir, I went back and I revisited places from the church, and I reconnected with places in the church, and I reconnected with Reverend's daughter, whom I was, again, best friends with until everything blew up and I was torn asunder from her when I was about 15 or 16. So it kind of shows that journey of that passage to how I got to where I am today. So I hear it's a good read.
Awesome. Well, it sounds very action-packed. I like it.
It's action-packed and quite psychological. So what I love about it, again, I say that, my situation is unique. I've met people who've had, grown up like I did in a cult, and we really relate, and there's certain ways we are carved the same. And recently for a book club, we read Scar Tissue, Anthony Kiedis's, he's this lead singer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, his memoir. And I called my brother, I'm like, oh my God, you have to read this. His description of his childhood is just like our life with Danny, my dad. So I mean, people with one and people with the other, but nobody with both other than my brother. But again, the themes are universal. And I've had clients, I've had, former members of organizations, I've had people with no relationship to my background at all reach out to me and say, wow, I identify, wow, I had those same things. Or as one of my next door neighbor said, thank you for giving us all the courage to tell our childhood stories, right? Because everybody has a story, a shame, a deep, dark secret that's hurting them, right? And we're only as sick as our secrets, right? If we can just say, look, wow, here it is. And people go, oh, you're not so bad. Some of that shame can go away. So that's one of the reasons I'm being so vulnerable and naked with the world right now.
Yeah, awesome. Well, will you tell me about like what's opened up? Because when we've talked, you said like a lot of opportunities have opened up since you've written your memoir, and that it took more from you than you were expecting writing the memoir. But like, can you tell us what the journey was like around like getting it completed, and then like what the universe has opened up for you since you did?
Yeah. So I literally started writing it probably somewhere around 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes. As my brother and I both say, so one of the saving graces when I was about in 1986, I was engaged to someone who drank a heck of a lot, and I crawled into 12-step. I crawled into Al-Anon. And tell me if I'm with an alcoholic. There's no way I would ever be with somebody like that. Right. Okay. So I did not realize how kind of messed up I was. And as my brother says, when you sit in this room of like 100 people who all have these really, really wild, sometimes horrific stories, and you tell your story and their jaws drop, you're like, wow. You're like, oh, I guess mine's a little different.
Wow.
So people would always say you need to write a book. And so I started writing a book over 20 years ago, about 20 years ago. And I was writing half memoir, half self-help, because I was a coach and I was going to help people. And here's what happened to me, and here's how it messed me up, and I got better, and you can too. And I would get these wonderful, great rejections that said, you're not famous enough to write a hybrid. Where will they put you in Barnes and Noble? You can't write a 2 kind of book. You have to pick a book and write it. And you probably can't write a self-help book, because who are you anyway to write a self-help book? And then in 2010, an agent called me and said, if you write a memoir, I'll represent you. And so I wrote it. And by the time I finished, she couldn't. And then it was been a process of a couple agents and a backs and forths until I connected with a publisher who agreed to publish it. And so I was just doing it. One of my good and bad scars from my childhood is I just do just about anything that's in front of me to do. And so I was just doing this, and we got it, and I got the publisher, and we signed, and it's coming out. I'm doing all things and setting up publicity, and then it comes out, and as I said to you, like, it came out on September 18th. On September 20th, I was on the Megyn Kelly show. I had articles written about me in marieclaire.com that got picked up in Apple News and was like an editor's pick for 3 days or 4 days. And cults are hot, and the story is fascinating. I got interviewed by the dailymail.com. So I had all this great publicity, and reconnected with my best friend from 5th and 6th grade. She found me, and my teacher, and all sorts of people are finding me, and strangers are finding me. And then you're kind of thinking, what did I do? Because now, like, I walk around my neighborhood and everybody knows a lot of interesting things about me. Or I recently had a new client who, I met this client, and he downloads the book while I'm there, and he sends me an email a couple weeks later, like, work, P.S. Just read the book. Going to be really interesting to work with you. And when I saw him, he had this huge epiphany on my life that is probably true that I never had, right? So I was like, wow, I never thought of that way. So it's this very vulnerable, open, naked feeling, which is every now and then kind of scary. But then I keep thinking, for every single person who says thank you, then it's worth it. And then to go back to my work, I talk about being authentic. And now I've been authentic. I'm even more authentic. Because again, I can say to clients, yes, like, yes, I did this. Okay, now let's talk about you. Yes, this is where this is from. Now, how can you use it? So it's been a wild 4 months.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I mean, yeah. So it's like every time you level up to new opportunities, it's like it does take a new version of yourself.
Yeah, a new version of yourself, right? And so, like, I have 3 key messages, and one with that keeps me going with the book. And one is that extremist situations exist. They're prevalent. They're intoxicating. Everybody's susceptible. They give us community, purpose, and certainty. It's a wonderful feeling, even if it's not true. So they're there. The second is for anyone who feels hopeless or damaged beyond repair, I want to say there is hope, like there's a message of hope. And the third, as a coach and a consultant and for my own life, I firmly believe that we as a race, right, are too hard on ourselves. We're self-critical, we're self-judging, we're self-lambasting, we beat ourselves up, and we all need a huge dose of self-compassion. So those are the messages. As I say, in the corporate world, you kind of talk about it, maybe not with the word love, but with other words. But, even the CEOs I work with need a sense of, whew, I'm okay. Like the whole imposter syndrome. I don't have to buy into it, and I don't have to react to this person as if it's something that's, going to make or break me. I can show up more authentically. So those are kind of the ways I'm doing. And so I'm stepping up, being even more authentic, being even more vulnerable, encouraging clients to be even more authentic and even more vulnerable. And, you know, it's like Brene Brown's work, like how can we be vulnerable and be real with each other so that we can truly connect, so that we can truly, like you say, have impact and make a difference.
Mm.
I need to see you as a person and connect with you as a real human and have that trust and that relationship in order to make that happen. I get excited. I preach about this stuff. Sorry.
No, I'm like, this is exactly what we want on the show, right?
Yeah.
So like talking about emotional intelligence and what the tools of like just relating human to human with authenticity, like how that actually does amplify your impact. Like people want to follow you, they want to be on your team, like if they feel in relationship with you.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Right. The first key thing, we are social animals. We need people, right? Even introverts still, right? It's a whole fallacy that there are people who don't need people. Even introverts need people. Like we need people and we need connection, but our brains are wired to protect ourselves, right? And our brains are wired with biases and all these things that stop us from connecting with people. So how do I let down my guard, be a little honest with you, realize when I'm judging you and making up stories about you or myself? What are those stories I'm making up in my head? How do I chill them out a little bit and then actually connect with you? And then together we can build something great. So
that's so good. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. And, you know, I mean, it's like, I knew that this would be the case, but as I'm doing these interviews, like everybody brings it back to being of service and being authentic. And it's like, it's like universal laws really to forward yourself in the world and forward the people around you. Cause it's not just about us, it's about the community too.
Yeah, when I have learned that when you go to build community, you get it back 10, 100-fold. You absolutely do. I had coffee with a woman who works in the same field I do, and we were talking today, and like we you know, we could compete. We do compete for work, but there's plenty to go around. There's always more. There's ideas I can share with people. There's ideas they can share with me. We can all make it better together. We don't have to. I mean, even when I teach conflict, I always say to clients, right? How do you and I, if we're in conflict, how do we get on the same side of the problem to solve it together? As opposed to me trying to convince you to my point of view and you trying to convince me to your point of view. How do we look at it together and say, wow, this stinks that this is there. How do we together figure out a way to work this through? And then you can move.
It's so good. Yeah. I mean, it's like we get to have more, I mean, we've got this like this kind of a, you know, push and pull going on in the world at this point where it's like, it's really a win-lose paradigm, where it's a scarcity paradigm. It's like, oh, there's not enough to go around. So in order for me to do well, you're going to have to lose. Right. And it, like the joke is that it's like, wow, there's like, look how abundant nature is. There's more than enough to go around if we don't go around and just destroy everything at the same time. Right.
And our brains have really wired to go to win-lose, right? They make sense, right? We need to protect ours and protect ourselves. So our brains automatically go there. So there's nothing wrong with the fact that we go there, but then how do we, you know, actually tell our brains what to do versus thinking we have to do where our brains go? How do we get to say, you know what, I don't need to be win-lose. How can I be win-win here? But it's not bad that I go to win-lose. It's great when I can say, okay, come back. I don't need to go there. Like, let me go back down, calm down and see if we can both win here. There's really deep impact you can have when people start to have a paradigm shift about, well, how can I take care of myself so I have more to give to my work? And how can I, you know, create a culture with my team where everybody can be most engaged? And how can we stop fighting in the organization and see each other's perspectives so we can do this great? We were with an amazing not-for-profit a couple weeks ago in DC. Their work is amazing and they're getting in their own ways, as many of us are, right? And so how can we solve this so we can still do that? So I'm lucky and I'm blessed that I get to do work that I think really helps people move forward. So, and the book is just woohoo. At times never thought that was going to happen, never gave up, but never thought that was going to happen. So it's really great.
Beautiful. Awesome. So if there was one thing that you could leave the viewers with around transforming their impact, what's made the maximum difference for you?
Learn yourself, learn to love yourself, learn to accept yourself, learn to just truly have compassion for yourself, take care of yourself, make yourself your best you, whatever that means. And then take the risk, go out there and be vulnerable, be real, be you, do you, do the best you can, and let it go that way, because that will allow you to really deeply connect with people, which will allow you let it all unfold the impact you can have. So that's what I've learned.
Awesome. Beautiful. Wonderful. And will you talk about a little bit about your free gift that you're offering people?
Yes, I'm offering two things. I have, as you know, my memoir, To the Moon and Back, A Childhood Under the Influence. And so I have that. And then I also have a book that encompasses some of the work we do around thoughtful leadership for my consulting firm, Chats with Consulting Group. And so that's called The Power of Thoughtful Leadership. So both books, I will have a PDF that I will send out to anybody who asks for the gift, because I am truly trying to spread pretty much the same message, one in a story and one in, they're literally thoughtful minutes. So they're short, quick things to kind of think about and say, how am I going to show up now? So I will give both those books to anybody who wants them.
Awesome. Love it. And there's actually going to be a page with a link. So if you click on the link, then you'll just be able to download them there and connect.
Give us an email and download them and we're in. Absolutely.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Well, thank you so much for watching, everyone. And thank you so much, Lisa Kohn. It's been amazing.
Thank you, Alexa. It's been great to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.